Hello, hello, everybody. All right, so we are back. All right, trying new things as usual. You know, being at TV for so long, like the the drive to make everything work, automatically, and to aid yourself with technology is undeniable. So now I'm playing with uh, this thing up here or up there. Restream. So right now I'm testing on streaming on two platforms at the same time for some reason. I don't know. I think it would be um, interesting. Maybe trying to stream for YouTube and or like by default, like for free, it allows you to um, join like two streams at the same time. So right now I'm streaming on my YouTube channel and on a Twitch channel. So let's see how that goes. Then I guess it's like $9 a month, and you're going to be able to do like 10 or 5, something like that. I mean 5 would be more than enough, right? So I can maybe stream to LinkedIn, Facebook, of course YouTube, Twitch, right? Not always, but sometimes Twitch is also good. Maybe if I'm talking about UEFN or something like that, just because it's a little bit of um, a gaming thing, right? But yeah, and maybe even TikTok, because for some reason, like a lot of people watch live streams from TikTok, and it's like a good way of broadening the initial funnel, right? The top part of the funnel, like you get a bunch of people visiting you just because they're bored watching TikTok for some reason. But to each his own. All right. Also, what else is new? I guess I'm testing a new camera setup. It's looking wonderful, at least on the monitor. I really don't know how good this thing is looking. Like I'm checking out in Twitch, and it's looking pretty nice. Let me check out in YouTube and see how this thing is looking. Another cool thing about using Restream is that if you use, and I might start using it. They have their own type of um, um, like studio, and when you are streaming to separate platforms. By the way, this is not a plugin. This is not a plug. I mean, like I recently learned about that thing when I bought, the Atom Mini, and I saw that in the different platforms that it can, because right now I'm streaming right from the actual thing, not through my computer. There's no OBS here, like hogging all my, like 50% of my GPU. Like this thing is my own separate streaming computer, right? And it's wonderful to have something like that. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Like for example, I'm not seeing it says that I'm live. No, now I'm live. Right. Cool. All right, so that's it. I'm live in YouTube and Twitch at the same time, and for some reason in YouTube I don't see the actual Restream logo up here, which is weird to say the least, but that's it. So a little bit more news is that my wife and I like ate something funny like a couple of days ago, and we are still a little bit under the weather. So this might be a short, lazy Sunday type of stream. But let's see how it goes. And I wanted to touch on something, that many of you might be interested. So let's go and dig in a little bit about PCGs, right? So let's jump into Unreal. So let me turn it on. Of course, we are going to be using 5.2, recently launched. A little bit of a review of the actual 5.2. I'm having like crashes crashes that I didn't have with 5.2 Preview 2, nor Preview 1 either. But yeah, I'm having, these direct 3D type of, crashes. Like, it simply bounces out telling you, like, yeah, I can't deal with this nonsense for some reason. But let's see how, this time goes. Like in our last live, like this thing disconnected like twice. Like I had like 2 crashes. Like one was a very silly one, where I was just, clicking on enabling strata. No, now it's substrate, right? Substrata to, as a middle term. And the thing hanged. Maybe just hang, not crash, but I crashed it anyway. And then, yeah, it was a complete crash with the 3D disconnection stuff. So, I have done like every due diligence, like the TDR, delay and stuff like that. Everything is set up correctly. I'm not in the latest driver for NVIDIA. I'm stuck in November. It's the 526, something like that, the studio one. And that was working perfectly well for 5.2 Preview 2. Now with, launch with 5.20, I'm having a little bit of issues. Let's see how many of those we get, today. And again, another thing that is pretty cool is this view, right? Hello. All right, stop playing with the Atom Mini. That thing it's too much, really. So we got back to our rural Australia map, right? And we're going to be playing with PCGs. And mainly I'm going to do like an early review of them. Not really, because as you know, I'm really not a tutorial, like step by step. Maybe just when we do works around. When I know that there is something, broken that needs to be fixed, that's when I do an actual tutorial. Like I won't show you how PCGs works, in that sense. I will find, I will help some client into making something work, and that will give me like a nice idea to do like a video. And this is how this works, right? I work with clients, they have issues, I solve issues. And then I ask, you mind if I, take this workaround and publish it on YouTube? They're going to say, yeah, fine, go ahead. And, that's how like 99% of my videos arise. And that, it's also why I don't publish like too often. Like every time, I get one of those, I will do, and I will enjoy, doing that video, because the hardest part that is, actually finding something to do a video, it's right there, with the consulting and everything. So yeah. So right now I'm just, on a lazy Sunday, and I want to show you a little bit about PCGs. So let's jump into that thing. So Control N, let's create a basic level. And wow, that was overly bright. Now it's good. Right, so what we are going to do here is to actually create a new PCG, right? And I should have a procedural something PCGs. Oh, here they are. All right, so I'm going to create a new PCG. So, all right, I'm not going to do like it step by step, but so because sometimes I get, I jump the gun and start, explaining things as we are all in the same page. And then I get some messaging saying like, how did you get there? How do you, get to that window there? Well, let's go step by step, just to start. So edit, go to plugins, be sure to search for procedural. And there it is. You have these two. You have the procedural content generation framework, and you have the one that also connect the PCGs with the geometry scripting, all right? The interop. This one turns to be like very, very powerful, right? Having the ability to create procedural generation in connection with geometry scripting. That one, when I'm curious to see what that thing is going to be in like a couple of months, when people already know how to work very well with it, and how people are going to find, clever ways of using it. It's, the future is bright, right? Okay, so let's continue. So the next thing is you right click, and I'm just suggesting this Epic. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but PCGs are the new thing, right? And there is a big wave. Like I searched, I researched the latest search of people in either Google or the best searcher there is the YouTube searching, and everybody is asking Unreal Engine 5.2 and Unreal Engine 5.2 PCGs. It's like the big thing. So add it here and create basic assets as you have Niagara. I know it's beta, it's still not released, but yeah, add it here. It's going to be so great, right? So let's go. It has its own thing, right? PCGs right there. And let's create a new one. So this is going to be my new test PCG. That's it. So once you create the asset, then you need to create the actual actor, right? And you can, drag it from the content browser as an asset and drop it in your scene as an actor. That would be, a way to do it. You can also, create one from the quickly add to the project PCG. There it is. You have the actual PCG volume, and this is getting silly. Like Epic should have like one volume, right? And then you should be able to add the actual component that you want to use, and that should be it, right? Because as you see, there are all actually volumes, right, in the actual actor, and then you have inside, an actual brush component, but this one is not like a really PCG thing. Then you have the actual PCG component at the bottom, right? So give me just a second. All right, so yeah, now we have like a bunch of different volumes here. Like this needs to stop, right? You should have like one volume, and then you should be able to switch, which component comes with it. Because again, volumes are, there have always been like very important while working with Unreal. Nowadays it's even more important because you can model volumes. If you go to your modeling mode, like everything that you can do to a model, you can also do, to a mesh, you can also do to a volume. And having exact shape volumes nowadays is more and more, important. And not, the squarish one that we get, by default, which is great, right? So that being said, now another thing is that this might not look exactly like this in your side, having like a 1 by 1 by 1 volume for PCGs. I set it this way because I'm still testing things around it, and I found that having like a 1 by 1 by 1 and having a scale of 1 by 1 by 1, and then start populating it with the actual boundaries, it's like a good exercise to start, knowing what PCGs try to do, right? So let me show you that by default, if you drop one of these inside your level, it's going to create like a 25 by 25 by 1 volume. So it's a huge volume, right? So if you want this, very, useful, 1 by 1 by 1, then you just need to go here, project settings, and you're going to plugins, and in plugins you're going to go PCGs, and right here you have the default volume scale, right? This one should be always on, right? But this one, having a 1 by 1 by 1, I found it, better. Okay, so now I have my PCG volume in and everything is good. Now I want to, actually edit it, right? And if you check the actual details in the details panel, you can see that there is the actual PCG component, and the PCG, it's a component here. Yeah, because it's here, but when you open it up, you can see that you have the actual, all right, where is it? Let me open it all. Oh, it didn't load the actual instance. So this thing should be this thing. Huh. That's weird. Okay. Let me try to drag it in again. Maybe because it wasn't saved. Oh, now it's there. Weird. All right. So as you see, the actual PCG component has, all the settings, very tied in, everything well nomenclated. This is good practices, having everything that you need in just one, very neatly packed component tab, right? And then you have the actual PCG graph, right? The instance, the one that you are working with, and then you have the actual parameters. So let's double click on this one. That is going to be the same as double clicking here, but when you are editing them in as actors, it doesn't matter where you are in your do I have some? All right. So it doesn't matter where you are in your actual, content browser. You can double click here and that should open them. Or you can simply select the actual volume and hit Control E, right, of edit. And that should take you right inside a PCG. All right, so first thing first. Right, kudos on the design of the whole thing. Like it's very welcoming. Like it looks like it's very much alike like everything else right inside Unreal, like everything that has to do with blueprints or control rig or everything else. Like you have the right side details, and let me just check how they call it. Yeah, it's exactly details. And on the left side, to break a little bit the mold, like this is on the right sides on the material editor, right? All the nodes that you can use. So maybe just because of consistency, this should be on the right. But yeah, you can do it. Like you can simply grab this and put it there, right? Like there, and that would be a same thing to do. But yeah, to which its own. So let me collapse that and put it like that. So if you open it on your side, it won't look weird, right? That's part of being an educator. All right, so first thing, this is a lie. It's a complete lie. The input and output, it really doesn't matter. It will only matter if this actual graph is going to be used by another graph. You're going to want to have like an output, and only if you are tabbing into anything from the outside of this graph is where you should use the input, right? So the input could be the actual in. So, and this is because you marvelously, you can use PCGs inside PCGs, right? You can do PCGs inception, like how you should be able to do like blueprint inceptions. Like communication between blueprints is one of those, very complex things, right? But in PCGs is very easy because you can simply grab like any other PCG like this and drop it inside. And yeah, this output now, if you were smart enough and you connected your last node to the output of your actual PCG, can become the input, right, of this PCG, right? So yeah, that's very amazing about PCGs. Like this, review of what an actual node editor can do. It's something that needs like a refreshment on the side of blueprints, right? So, but you actually don't need them to generate anything as a PCG. Like you can never connect these two, and you're still gonna have a complete functional PCG, right? So one of the only things that might be useful here in the actual input is that you can actually use other inputs than the actual node, right? That is going to be this one. You have other things like actors or original actor or landscape height, and these two may be the most important ones, right? Because you can actually sample the actual landscape, and you're going to project, right, everything that you create here or scatter here at the surface of your landscape. And I didn't know this, but the actual landscape has like a direction and rotation. Like every component, every, let's say, polygon have like some sort of direction, and you can create like very cool designs with the actual landscape. But if you're just interested on how high, you know, the actual landscape is, you can use, you know, this one, which is, you know, also cool, right? So let's start by just doing like a normal sampling, right? Like you want to have at least something to start scattering stuff around. And so let's go right click, and that should take us to the actual creating node menu. And let's go sampler, and let's get just, you know, point sampler, right? This should be like the most straightforward one, right? So now let's sample points, and that's it. And no, this is not the one that I want. Give me just a second. I want this sampler, volume sampler, right? This is the one I want, right? So if you don't connect anything to volume, it's going to be the actual volume that this PCG graph, right, asset is located at. So you can leave this, you know, disconnect. And the actual bonding shape, I'm pretty sure, is if you want to add like a spline on top of this, and you want to, you know, change the actual shape of the volume. Again, you can change the actual shape of the volume with the modeling tools, but to each his own. You can choose, you know, to use this to change the actual shape of the volume into something, you know, more artistically, you know, directed. So that's it. Let's take these two guys out of here, because again, we won't need them, right, for now. So once you have your actual volume sampler there, you should start to get to see the actual boundaries here. Some call them cubes, and yeah, the actual preview of those boundaries happens to be cubes, but they're simply not cubes. There are the actual boundary that will be used as collisions to make them not, you know, overlap themselves, right? So again, yeah, everybody calls them cubes, and then, you know, it gets complicated from there on. So let's start by, you know, using the D to debug what this actual, you know, sampler is doing, and I can simply, you know, do that. Let me drag this up so you can see, you know, what is happening. So right now, for some reason, all right, so it's, oh, okay. Again, this is another thing about PCGs. They are not consistent right now. Like you're bound to have, you know, some issues with this. Again, I think now that I see voxel side settings unbounded, no, this is not the one that I need. So yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry of my noobness with the PCGs, but yeah, everything have like the same name: surface sampler, volume sampler. Maybe it's the surface sampler, the one I want. Yeah, this is definitely, this is the one that I have been testing with, because it does have like the actual density, and it has the actual point. They call it points, like, right, there are the actual center of those boundaries, or the size of those boundaries, and then you have the looseness and the unbound thing and the seed. This is the one that I want. So now let's debug this one, and we should start seeing, let's save, regen. All right, it's not showing nothing because maybe the actual size of the points is too big. So I'm going to drop this just a little tad like this, and let me make it a little bit bigger. And now D, nothing. Let me make the point extends to be 10, 10, and 10. And now, all right, more points, nothing. Unbound, no. Huh. What is happening here? Maybe they need to be a little bit taller also. Oh my god. All right, so what am I doing wrong here? Again, this is my actual fight with this, the actual struggle with these PCGs. Like sometimes they do work, sometimes they don't work. So again, the first thing that I would do to start, let's say, actually debugging something like this is to actually, you know, grab one of these that is actually working and, you know, open it up and start copying and pasting things around, right? Like for example, this one, let me copy this volume sampler and let's see if, you know, this is the thing. So let me paste it there and nothing. Good. Why is that? Huh. All right. PCGs 1, Gabriel 0. All right, let me drop this rock thing there. Make it a little bit bigger. Oh, all right. Not even this one is working. Huh. All right. What if I do this? All right, this works. All right, so apparently I need to actually connect this. Let's see. All right. Yeah. Now I know why this thing was not working. Yeah. So the actual input. Yeah, you need to connect this input here into surface because it's like a reference to, you know, itself, the actual size and, you know, placement of the actual volume. So my mistake there, you need to actually connect this there. All right, because if you don't connect this thing, it doesn't know where it should be, you know, populating, right, and scattering the cubes. So very sorry about that one. Yeah, this actual input is necessary to actually limit, right, where they are going to be scattered around. All right, so that is there. Now let's start checking out this thing. So I'm going to grab this and set it to 1 by 1 by 1 again, so we can check out a little bit of what I have found out. All right, that's it. Let me drop it there. Okay, so let's go and play with these points per square meter, because what I want to try to do is to have like the maximum amount of these volumes, right, or these boundaries. And at 30 something, I'm guessing like 20, 25, I believe, is like the upper boundary where, you know, you're going to be filling in your whole thing, right? And now you're going to see that this actual point extent is in, it may be in centimeters. It sure should have like an actual size to it, right? Again, another thing to know is that I know that each and every one of these squares in this texture is 1 meter. And even though I went to the actual project settings and I went to the actual PCG node, you can the PCG plugin, you can see that it should be a 1 by 1 by 1 and still is a little bit bigger. Let me just test if that is true. Let me get a basic shape a cube. This is a 1 meter cube. This is not. This is a 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 actual volume, right? It's not a 1 by 1 by 1. So yeah, it's like, all right, if you were to feed a volume here, you will be able to fill it with 4 cubes of 1 meter, which is weird, right? So what if I wanted to have like 1 meter blocks, right? Or 1 meter of these cubes in, scatter exactly, one, back to back to the next. How big this thing should be? Maybe 0.5. 0.5. Let me set this to 1. Lock this, put this in 0.5. And yeah, now I have a 1 meter cube, right? And if I volume, and if I want this to be like one sample, right? How big these ones should be? 100, 100, and 100, maybe. Let's do half and see if we can fill it with 4. All right, no, 50 seems to be. As you see, everything is tricky around this thing. So if you want to be logical about this thing, you need to break a little bit of the rules, right? Like a 1 meter volume is like a 0.5 scale volume, right? And 50 size in extent of the actual boundary, it's like 1, like that's your scatter. There's your 1 there. And if you lower this, how low can I go with this until it disappears? Less than 1, maybe? Yeah, exactly. Less than 1 is going to simply not scatter. So now I'm scattering like only one thing inside this volume, right? And that is also because the looseness is 0, meaning that everything is not going to be spread around. Everything is going to be tight, and tight packed in. So what would happen if now I, double this thing? Will I have 4 of those? I believe that should be the case. Let's see. What if I go 1 here? Now I have 4 of those. Yeah, now it's all right, let me move it around, because and that's another thing that is a little bit off-putting about PCGs, and that is the actual how it's called, deterministic nature of what you do with PCGs. Let me get rid of this cube for now. And that is that everything is already spread, right, by that actual seed. So if you take a look at the seed, this is the seed number, and this means that this is already set up for you, right? Like the amount of black cubes, gray cubes, and dark gray cubes, and white cubes, everything is already settled. And it doesn't matter where you move your actual volume, that thing is going to still be there, and you can revisit it, right? So if this thing is big or small, that is going to be the actual, distribution of these things. And for some reason, it is like in the middle of this grid down there. So it's not actual world positioned with this thing, but it's all right. It's right in the middle. But it does, work, right? There are 1 meter boundaries inside this scattering. So this means that if I keep adding more space to this, like maybe 10, now I should have 100 of those 1 meter boundaries in, right? So first thing first, this actual points per square meter is the actual density. Sort of let's see, if I set this to 0.5, I should have exactly half of those cubes. Let's check it out. Let's do it a little bit easier. Let's create a 2 meter volume, right? And in a 2 meter volume at full density, I should have 8, right? So if I set it to 0.5, there should be 4, but it's not exactly like that, right? Like, I know that I'm trying to find some sort of logic, and there might be one very explicit one that I'm not getting, but it's not exactly as you will think of. So maybe to create 4, you need to go down to 0.15, and even so, right? So yeah, whatever. All right, so that's good. So one, I will have, you know, those 16 cubes, right? 4 by 4, which is great. Now let's see what this lostness thing does, right? So we know that we can drop a little bit of the actual density, right? And again, the density doesn't have anything to do with the actual value of each and every one of these volumes. Like they will have like a density on their own, right? How well packed are they inside that volume? But at the same time, they will have a random value to each and every one of those, and that is being, you know, assigned by the actual seed. So you can change the seed, and this is another thing that I'm not like, I don't really get about PCGs. Like the actual randomness of this value is like maybe too random. Like again, you would want to spec like zoning, right? Like you should have like darkest patches and widest, you know, patches, but it's totally random, right? So you're gonna see in a second that you can actually start pruning this thing with this actual value, and that is the main reason why you have different random values, even though you have also an actual density of these things. Because, you know, I could set this to 0.5, and now I should have like 1/4. That, I mean, that may be the actual math. Like this is 1/4 of the actual initial density. Like you have 50% of possibilities. It might be. So if I change this, this should also change, right? You have like 50% of chances to this having half of what you had before, right? But at the same time, you can then, you know, use pruning with the actual value. So you can prune, you know, the actual sampling to things that are 0.5 and up, right? So in this case, this white one will survive, this gray, light gray will survive, this might survive, but yeah, these 2, these 3 might, you know, be pruned. And then you're going to have like spaces, right? And you have like these little islands of those sample boxes, right? And yeah, you know, this is how PCGs work. Like it or not, like that is the math behind it. That's why everything created with PCGs by now looks very uncanny. Like organic things doesn't grow that way. Like they grow big things in the center with smaller things, you know, at the side of that, and then even smaller things, you know, at the side of that. That is how nature works, right? Because, you know, big rocks will be broken by some type of force, like a glacier or something, and then, you know, small pieces of that breakage will be around it. If you break out and too far from the original source, then, you know, things like wind and rain will take you, you know, somewhere else, and, you know, the erosion in you is going to be higher than the big thing in the middle. So that's how, you know, nature works. No, not this math. So that's one of the big beefs that I have, you know, with these PCGs. Again, they're great, they are starting, but yeah, that's how I feel about them. Sorry if I'm not looking at any of the comments and stuff. I don't know if there is anybody seeing me right now. So let's check it out. Let me go back here and see if we do have people watching the channel. I don't think so, because, you know, it's Sunday. I'm not talking about something too amazing. So let's check it out. Nope. Yep. No, I'm completely alone, at least on Facebook, on YouTube, and I'm totally sure that that is the same thing with Twitch. So let's continue. So once you get to this realization, right, that you can have, you know, all these boundary boxes, right, they're very tied together, right, with the actual sampling, then you can use that, you know, let's go to density, and let's get, it's not density. I know that is prune, self-pruning. No, it's not that one. Is density filter, maybe? All right, yeah. This may be the thing. So now I'm going to, instead of watching this one, I'm going to watch this one, right? And this is, you know, exactly what this thing did, right? So if I set this to don't prune anything from the lower bound, and the higher bound is going to be 1, we have exactly the same, and you can start saying, right, I want some of those to disappear, right? And in this case, it's going to be the lower value. So everything black start, you know, disappearing, and you get, or you can go, you know, all the way the other way around. So like this. So this is how you start, you know, actually scattering things like in a random type of, you know, behavior, right? Again, density can be used to many other things, but you know, this is one of those uses right there. So, and yeah, you can also use the actual, you know, point per square. That should give, again, some other sort of scattering around, like randomly, without, you know, and still having like a good sampler of values around, having some, you know, values of 1s and some values of 0s. And now I'm going to spread this even more. So now let's create like a good sampling out of this thing. Like this. And as soon as I move it around, there it is. All right, 1 second. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing the screen. All right, so I was showing that with the density filter, let me go back here, set this to 1, so everything is, you know, very well packed together. And then with the actual density, the density filter, you can start, you know, checking things that are with the value of 1. You can say, all right, I want to lower that upper bound, and then, you know, white boxes start disappearing, and you can do the exactly same thing with the lower bound. So everything, all the values nearing 0 are going to start disappearing, right? So let's do this exact thing, but maintaining. And all right, let's do this. So I'm going to get rid of half of the light boxes, right? So everything about 0.5 is going to be pruned, right? And what I can do next, right, to have something that still have, you know, all the values, right? So right now this thing is clamped from 0 to 0.5, right? And I want this to be remapped, right, to be 1 to 0s, right, or 0 to 1s. Well, I'm thinking it's remap, density remap, exactly. So everything that happens to be 0.5, it's going to now be, or it should be the other way around. So everything that is 0.5 should start being 1. 0.5. So now let's debug this one. No, this was not the one, so it might be this one. Nope. Right, so everything maybe is, all right, is this one. All right, so now if I set this to 0.5, now I get again values from 0 to 1, right? And I got a little bit of pruning, right, out of the density filter. Now we could do all that if we simply go here and we lower, you know, the density. It's exactly the same, right? And in fact, I think that if I do this sampling looks pretty much like this one. In fact, is the exact, no, it's not the exact. Yeah, it's a little bit different. All right, so these actual point per square meter, again, because it doesn't have anything to do with the actual density, you know, it will give you a separate and different distribution to using these two, right? So to this point, like I don't get why do this if you can do it like right here, right, in just the same actual node, right? And another thing is that you're going to find that there are still pretty well packed together, and if you want to lose that tightness, let's do this. Let's put this again in ones, right? And now you can rise up the actual looseness, and you should see that they should remain, you know, the actual same size, but now they're going to start, you know, taking a little bit of distance, you know, between them, and you can keep on doing that until, you know, you start seeing that you have also like another way of doing the same thing, like lowering the density, but in this case it's not only lowering the density but also, you know, shuffling them a little bit and spreading them, you know, around. Like the actual looseness is like an actual boundary, right? Like it's expanding the actual collision boundary, or the chances that these things won't grow like exactly together. And they seem to be growing from one point, right? Like outwards, you can see it there. So this might be how this thing works, right? It's like spreading it from some sort of center, right? So if you set your looseness to 1, you can see that now you have a more organic type. At least they are not like in line, right? And that is important. Still, they are a little bit in line. Let's check it this side. So you may want to take this even further if you want to break that line. You see, it's not that of a great way of, you know, doing the actual spreading. I can show you, you know, another way of doing this. So let's set these to 1, and let's see, you know, the actual distribution that we get, right? And it's pretty nice, right? We have a couple of, you know, different values, and we have actually, you know, the full density, right? So if you lower this, it won't matter, because already was pruned by giving themselves, you know, space in between. So you can see how much of those did you lose. So if you start, you know, going down and until you don't see any loss, you can know, you know, how many of those did you really lost, right? So let's keep this in 1. We have the lostness in 1, which is, you know, which will give themselves a little bit of chance of not grow together or be scattered together. And now I'm going to grab this, disconnect this, because again, these two nodes could be achieved by lowering the actual points per square meter, really. It's cool to have them because, again, PCGs do things that in the graph that you cannot do with many other node graphs, for example, blueprints. And that is that you can, you know, have like the same sampling and then run them through 2 separate, you know, filters if you want. So maybe this filter will go from 0.75, right? And this one is going to go only from, you know, 0.5, right? And this should give you like 2 separate, let me undebug this one and debug this one. And this is like one sampling and this is another one, right? So this is why you might use these ones, right? If you have like more than one way to go with the same sampling. The bad thing about this is that they are going to be on top of each other mostly, right? So if I see this one, I'm bound to find like this exact sample right here is in both. You can see it there. So it's in this one and it's also in this one. So yeah, it won't move around stuff. It will only, you know, take the chances of pruning, you know, one from another. So this is, you know, great. Now let's go back here and show you how else you can do some sort of this looseness, right? To make it even a little bit more offset, you know, and without too much pattern, because there are still fairly in line, right? Because again, you know, it's going from being like this, like completely arranged, to half disarranged or full disarranged with one, but still you can see a little bit of pattern there. Like the lining pattern is very apparent. So you might want to use the actual transform points. So let's go transform, reset transform points. Cool. So now let's check this one out. Let me debug this one and debug this one. And here it is. You have everything at 0. That's why this looks exactly the same. And this one is pretty cool if you want to start, you know, giving rotation, like random rotation to everything here. So you can go from 0 to 180. And there it is. Now everything is offset in rotation, right? Which is amazing. And I found out watching some videos that this absolute rotation have to do if you are like adding to the actual position or setting the actual, adding to the actual rotation or applying like an absolute rotation to this thing. And this is important when you are using things like the actual landscape sampling from here, because this one will will collect the actual rotation of the actual landscape and will apply it to these things. So in this case, with this absolute, like you can override whatever rotation, you know, it's getting from the actual landscape, right? But again, you can also do offsets in the actual position, right? In the location. Let's do that. So let me get this as it was. And let's say I want you to move like minus, or the chances of this thing moving. I'm not going to move it on C. I want to move it on X and Y. So maybe 5. 5 is too low. Maybe 10. Minus 10 and 10. 10 is like too. Let me try 100. Right, now you can see that it's not moving them all. It's just like a random value, right? So it could be like minus 100 to 100. But this is what is going to happen. You are bound to have some that are going to start overlapping, because when you do it from the actual density or the looseness, it will take into account the actual collision, right? With the actual transform, you can make them, you know, one bump into the other one. You can then prune whatever is, you know, on top of each other if you want. So again, you know, this is how the math of this thing works. So I'm going to do exactly the same here. So minus 100, 100. And this is what you get. A little bit more, you know, of that spread, right? So I can maybe lower a little bit the density of this thing. And now you can see that you really break out, right, the actual linearity, right? Now you cannot see the actual pattern, right? Just by adding a little bit of an offset here, a random offset. So let's do something. Let's set this to 0 and this one's only to 50. That should be more than enough. And now I can rise up a little bit of my density. And now things are not colliding. At least not many of those, I believe. All right, so that is good. Now the actual linearity, right? The actual grid pattern is not that apparent. So it's looking a little bit better. So yeah, this is mainly, you know, what I have been working on, like trying to find reason behind the madness of the PCGs. It's not been easy because of many things, like for example, from actual launch of preview 1 to preview 2, they had like some nodes that are simply not there. Some are new and some will have like separate or different actual names of the attributes, or some attributes are not there, or there are new attributes. And then when you're following, you know, a video, you are like, all right, now let me pause the video and see how many of these things I need to click on or off until I get the exact behavior that that person is having on the actual video. Like, I pity the fool who is right now planning on doing tutorials or, you know, classes, actual lectures about PCGs, because this thing is bound to change so much that you know, following those things is going to be very frugal. It's going to be like, it's going to work for this week. Maybe in 1 month or less than 1 month, we're going to have like the next iteration of Unreal, and this will change completely. And I know that's the nature of the beast, but right now it's like it's changing too fast, right? Even from preview 1 to actual release, this thing changed to a point where it's very hard to find like one tutorial that you can follow from beginning to the end without something breaking. But yeah, it's cool if you want to be an early adopter. Like, I totally understand it. Like, I'm on that struggle right now. All right, so one last thing that I think that is pretty cool, and this is like the whole thing about PCGs. Like, the only thing that I see on PCGs that I say, oh wow, I hope, I would really want to have that same thing in other, you know, type of things. Like, for example, the actual the level instance actor. Like, if I could have this projection thing in my level instance, like, I would be happy, right? Because what I would really want is to maybe place things by hand and then, you know, have the thing to really have contact with whatever is beneath it. Like, that is what I really wanted, you know, from to be in other features, right? And that's it, that you can grab this thing as it is and you can project. Projection. And this should be world something. World ray heat query. Right. Now let's undebug this one and debug this one. And this is one of those things that in the videos I said, and you connect this and you're done. And the thing just landed. Maybe this thing is too high. Let me put it down there. All right. So what I want now with this projection is for all the, you know, points that were arranged up here to actually find something at the bottom, right? Like with a ray hit directly under it and snap to it, right? But now it doesn't work on, maybe is with this. Maybe this should be output, because nope. Project scales, project rotations, no. I'm guessing it's this one. Self hits, nope. All right, let's go and search how it is done. So ignore PCGs, ignore self hits, ignore PCG hits. Is this? Nope. All right, why have a node that you connect and it simply doesn't work? Like this? Still not working? What about this one? Oh, project rotations. Maybe it's that? Nope. What gives? Is exactly the same. Huh. Oh, right. You know what might be the actual in? That should not be here. Let me see if this is the case. What if I do it like this? Nope. All right, now you see, now it's broken. All right, now I can see them. If I lower this too much, it stopped working. Huh. All right, now what if Nope, it's not working. Right. Let me copy these ones from here, paste it there, connect this here, save, something, something. Nope. All right. You see the struggle, right? You can see my struggle right there with this thing. Or maybe because oh my god, this thing is so infuriating. All right, let's copy this whole thing here and see what is wrong with this. So in samples D. Okay. But what if I take the rock thing again and I go to rocks and I debug this thing as soon as I do this. All right, so this is good. And as soon as I do this, oh, right. You got me again, Epic. You got me again. Here it is. The thing is that when you create a new level, this actual cube floor that is here doesn't have collisions. Why? I don't know. Someone took that decision. But now it doesn't have collisions. So you gotta, yeah, and that is going to, you know, turn you completely mad if you don't remember. It's set to block all the dynamics, so you need to set it to block all, and that's it. And now if I maybe move this should work. All right, now it's working. Now I do have this working, so whatever I was doing here, it might work now. So let's see, in there. So now if I debug this one, I do have this, and now if I debug this one and I intersect this thing here, all right, now that the eagle has landed. All right, cool. So, and now let's put in between the actual transform like this and this, and that's it. I have a little bit of transform, and now let's rotate a little bit. And that's it. Now they are like, there are two things. Maybe because of actually these. Why have two sets of things here? Ah, what is this? Oh, with E. Oh, all right. Oh, I see. All right. So I now have one pair of this thing. And yeah, this is what I have been finding out. Again, this is just, you know, you playing with these bounding boxes. You are bound, you know, at some point to have an actual mesh spawner. Static mesh spawner, and I have a huge beef with this one, and that's it. Let me show you what that is. So if you go, where is it? Here on, no, where are the actual elements? Mesh entries, right? And I'm going to create only one mesh entry. To get to the actual thing that is here, it's great, right? And you can maybe search for the 1 meter cube. No, I'm joking. I'm going to do it with some sort of rock. Yeah, this one would be good, right? Now I can check out this one. All right. So now I do have all my rocks there, right? And they all have like different rotations, and they should also have a little bit of a size change, right? So they're going to go from 1 to 3, right? now I have a bunch of rocks right there, and that is good. And you know, the actual pattern is still visible. It's too hard really to make this look, or you know, you might need to have like some techniques, right, of combining the actual density with the pruning and then with the transform to make everything look maybe have this to full 360. No, because then you're going to have a bunch of things. It should be 180 and would be enough. All right, so now what if I want another rock, right? So I will close my descriptor and I will do like another element to the array like this. And now you can see that some of those disappear because now you have half on half, you know, probability of this second one, right, to be spawned. But the thing is, when you start adding a couple of those, if you want to get to the next one, you have all these things exposed into one tab, which is horrible, right? Because you have to scroll a lot. You could also, you know, do like static mesh here, and you know, it should work better, right? To have like everything that you want to spawn like right here. So now let's grab another rock. And number 4. I choose number 4 twice. So then maybe number 3 and sorry, and number 4. And that's it. So yeah, I will give this release a 5, right? A 5 out of 10. Like, I know it's beta, but still a little bit cumbersome. It's still a little bit of an, you know, of a learning, very steep learning curve about how to use them. The fact that they are changing too much, like it's really hampering the ability of learning them correctly. And again, if you want to learn, when you want to learn something, you know, for you to simply use on a production or something like that, and you don't want to go too deep, like, yeah, this is, you know, easy peasy, right? You follow a couple of tutorials and you know how to do it. But when you are going to be on the spot of someone asking you questions about this because you're preparing some sort of lecture, or you're going to be an instructor for these kind of things, like you really want to know, you know, all the answers, or at least how they, you know, how people will think about, you know, stuff like, why can I change the density and at the same time prune the thing, and you know, why it has values, like there is so many things, like you need to find some sort of easy answer, right, to all of those, or at least a logic answer. And you know, for the time being, this is what I have found to be, you know, the answer to this. I'm guessing the last thing I'm going to say about this actual world array is that it should have like more masks, right? Like it will ignore other PCG hits. So if you have this thing, like if you have another PCG on top of this, with maybe, let me show you. So I do have one with bushes, so I can drop it there and I can make it a little bit bigger. We should see as soon as I do this that it does have the same projection thing, but it won't project on top of other PCGs, right? It will project directly on the floor, which is good, right? But you may want to have like a tag or something like that. Oh, look at that, it does have a tag. Oh, that is good. So you can even say, all right, it's there. All right, cool. I'm learning something right now. So you can have actual tags on which actual actors you want this thing to be, you know, to be considered a hit for actually doing the projection. All right, good. That is very good. This is what I would expect of this. Cool. What if you don't ignore self-hits? Will a bunch of those rocks be on top of others if they are in the same spot? That would be like a cool thing to do, right? Like little towers of rocks that happens to spawn right on top of each other. Huh, that is trippy. All right, so, oh my God, what is happening back there? Maybe too much light? Exactly. All right, so I want to thank you all. If there is any, I don't know, this is a lazy Sunday, a little bit under the weather. So let me check the actual stream and see if we have some sort of activity in the chat. Oh, we do. All right. Trying to get a grasp of PCGs before jumping into Unreal myself to try them out. Yeah. What I would suggest is to try the actual content that come with Unreal. So let me just show you. Let me go back to Unreal very soon. Oh, go back. Oh, something happened. Oh, no, I know what happened. But I should be here. Sorry for that. If you want to start, checking this out and how does it work, you want to go and be sure that you go to your content browser, go settings and enable engine content and plugin content, and go to engine, go to plugins and search for procedural. All right. And when you get to the geometry, nope. Maybe it's this one. PCGs? No, it's not PCGs. Oh, here it is. Yeah. If you search for PCGs, you're going to find it. It's called Procedural Content Generation Framework Content, right? And here you're going to have some sample content, and you're going to have like this simple forest, and you can go to the actual PCG graph and you can drop it inside your scene, and you can make it big like this, and even like this. And if it doesn't grow, it's because it uses the landscape sampling. So you might want to even go to the actual level, right, and test it there. So I'm not going to save anything here. And be sure to visit all these different levels. In fact, go to to the actual sample content and filter by level, and start simply opening all of those and checking. This should already be in the actual Unreal Engine content example. Is not, but yeah, it should have a couple of examples on how to work on these things. You will have also a couple of samples, not only of levels but actually PCGs that you're going to be able, for example, like this one. This one is cool. This one is using vertex painting and it's growing on a mesh. And if you want to check out how this thing works, you simply need to select the actual PCG. You hit Control E, and there it is. It should be better. It should be much better commented, to tell you the truth. But yeah, as you see, it will. Oh my cat! Shush. All right. So yeah, be sure. This should be the first step, right, into trying to understand this thing. Get what Epic did as a sample of the actual plugin, and start studying how they achieve all these. All right. So Control E, and you're going to be able to check it out. It does have some commenting on, right? This is the actual geo sampler. This is the the actual grass on the actual rock. So each rock should have a little bit of grass growing on top of it. So yeah, be sure to check this out because those are working examples that you already have constructed there, and there is nothing, you know, more academic, right, than start, you know, picking these things apart, like saying, all right, I want to know what this does, right? So you can simply, you know, grab all these and hit E to, you know, negate or, you know, turn off all those nodes, and you can start checking out, you know, what is what and what effect is creating by any of these things, right? Yeah, that would be what I would do. All right, so let me enable everything that I just disabled. That's it, and that's it. And yeah, be sure to check all these samples to start knowing how this works and combine them and try to think of, you know, clever ways of making them even better. All right, so let me check other questions. Nope. You can make a smaller size volume so it's easier to visualize it. Yeah, the actual size of the volume you can assign on the actual actor in the details panels, and a 1x1 will give you like a 2 meter square volume, and from there on, you know, you can do the math. Also, can you repeat why everything is on top of the volume and not at the bottom? Right, because that is what that sampler type does. So let me go back there and we can check it out. Right, let me actually go back there like this and check it out. So let me go back to my examples like here, and let me drop the new test PCG, give it a little bit of size like this, and, you know, intersect it with the actual landscape, right? So right now it touched ground because it does have what is called the project node. So let me hit Ctrl E so you can check it out. So if I take this projection and I disable it like this with E, because the actual surface sampler is using the actual input, and, you know, the input is like a self-reference of the actual of the actual actor, and this thing is like a volume actor, right? It will only create them on the top. Like, it's like taking this as the actual surface to actually create to be the base of the actual sampling, right? So that's why they are there. You can choose to use the landscape one, but again, I really don't like it because I want them to work like everywhere, right? That's why when I try the ones from Epic and I try them on an actual, you know, surface on a mesh, it didn't work. So you're going to be puzzled, you know, if you have not opened your PCG in a while, you're going to see, all right, why this thing is not generating. Oh, it might be because I use the actual landscape sampling, right? Because let me show you. Instead of using this sampling, right, I'm going to nope, not that. I'm going to disable it, and I'm going to actually connect the landscape here. So these just crash Unreal. All right, first crash of the stream. All right, it doesn't matter. So what would happen is it will actually sample the landscape that is right here, and oh, it did, but it did it on an unbound way. That's why it was, you know, taking so long. So right, so this is actually taking the whole landscape, right, to do the thing, and not the actual shape of the volume. So I'm guessing it should be like, let me just rephrase this, disconnect this. Right now it's thinking about removing all the, it did create like a billion rocks like in a second. All right, that was pretty, that's the other thing that I would really love, right, to have like blueprints that works this optimal. Yeah, if this thing is fast, yeah, it's great. It's simply great. All right, let's go back to the messagings to keep reading while this thing. Um, all right. Um, oh, it's due to the node being surface sampler and not volume. Exactly. The 360 was better than 1080 degrees of rotation. It was better. I think like if you really want a 50-50 chance, or all the, not 50-50, it should be the exact chances of something being rotated. It should only go halfway, because if you go all the way around, then you have like double the chances of it having the exact same rotation but mirrored, and you start seeing some sort of pattern on it. Do you know where you can find the demo that you showcased with the car? No, it's still not. It was not released, and it's a little bit weird. It should have, because that thing is beta and not experimental. For example, substrate is experimental, and it is featured in the content examples from Unreal, but there is no mention in there for PCGs. So it's a little bit weird, but I'm guessing that with the actual release, coming out of beta to be in release inside of Unreal, they are for sure going to have that sample release. No worries about it. All right, the actual keyer on this atom is not amazingly good, but it's working. It's working. I would rather have a little bit of this than sharing my machine with OBS ever again, right? So Unreal never came back, and it's been an hour and a half, right? And an hour and 30 minutes since I started this live. So maybe it's time to start saying my goodbyes. And, as usual, be good to each other. I love you all, and I will catch you on the next one. All right?